Welcome, Off-Season After Dark fans. Glad to have you here for episode 15. And as of last week, we accomplished our goal of hitting all 9 conferences across the country. So the MAC was the last conference we hit last week. And we are back to the American today. Some of you may remember one of our earlier episodes. We had Garrett on to talk about the American, but he was not, affiliated with any one team or doing his own podcast. We're happy today to have Hunter Bailey, who is a part of the Highway 49 podcast, and he is a Charlotte 49er fan, which is awesome. And they're a team I've, talked a lot about this offseason and written about in my coaching articles. I think Tim Albin was a fantastic hire, great move for them. So Hunter, glad to have you here today.
Definitely, man. Looking forward to talking some ball.
Absolutely. How long have you guys been doing your podcast as a group?
We started it maybe 3 years ago. So during the Will Healy era at Charlotte, so it's now covered 3 of the 4 coaches programs had. So yeah,
that's impressive. Yeah, that's when you can keep that kind of longevity in a field that's getting inundated with people doing it. I'm still a newbie, only 15 episodes in, so good for you guys. Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. And what got you guys into the space? Are you guys all Charlotte grads, fans? What made you want to, talk about their athletics?
Yeah, so I graduated from school in 2020. 2021, I started writing for the Charlotte Observer, covering mainly Charlotte football. I've kind of branched out to the Charlotte Hornets, done some UFC events, just awesome. Different things. But got started in the podcast world 2022, and it was originally just me and one other guy, but he kind of got out of the media space. So then I added in Hannah Brady and then Jeremy Grandison, who still do the pod with me. So we've done about 100 episodes with the current construction, awesome. Myself, Hannah, Jeremy, and I think it's about 115 total. So yeah, I've been sticking around for a while, growing the fan base of it and trying to provide like a free service for Charlotte fans, people that want to listen. So
that's awesome. Yeah, and I'm kind of in a similar boat. Only for our SEC After Dark, they're all very SEC centric, and the viewers are as well. So I'm kind of trying to pull in people from other conferences, other teams, and bring them into the fold so that our viewers learn more about especially in Charlotte, which is prominent southern city, and I'm sure we have a decent amount of viewers, listeners who are in that area. I know for me, being in Columbia, and we have, Knoxville's not a terrible drive from there. Clemson, ACC's close by, but we have should be a lot of overlap in that city. I feel like Charlotte and Atlanta are the 2 places where you have fans of every team in those cities, so it should be good and makes sense. One thing I wanted to ask you a little bit about. So, like I said before, I was a massive fan of the Tim Albin hire. He did a very good job at Ohio, taking over from Frank Solich. They struggled his first year. Then he had 3 seasons in a row where they won 10 games. So when you guys, knew when the writing was on the wall that Biff wasn't going to come back, was that a surprise to you? Did you guys expect the end was near during the season?
Yeah, it was. His tenure was quite the journey. So, when he started, he set really lofty expectations, and I think the messaging kind of came back and bit him. He in the middle of the second season, Charlotte played Gardner-Webb, an FCS school, maybe 30, 45 minutes from here, and did everything they could to lose the game. Their third-string quarterback ends up coming in and winning the game, but you could tell the writing was on the wall. Had they lost that at home, big favorites, that could be it.
Didn't they win by 1 in that game? Wasn't it a 1-point game?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And maybe 4 weeks later, they play South Florida at home. Another big game, homecoming.
Yeah.
And you just get ran off the field. And after the game, I asked Biff, because part of my workload with the Observer is writing analysis and grading different parts of the facets of the game, run offense, run defense, whatever it may be. So I just asked him, grade yourself after that. And he pretty much said, like, I know what this means. And
Oh, okay.
literally the next day I pre-wrote the story, got ready for it. I figured it was coming, and sure enough they did. So after that game they were 3-9, or not 3-9, 3-7 at that point.
Didn't they win their last two actually after he got fired?
Yeah, and he was a little bit upset because those were two games that they were favored, and that was the weakest part of the schedule. So he wanted to kind of both boost the record with that and go 5-7. But both those games were super close games. Like UAB came down to the last play, and but yeah, his you could tell it was over, and I think Tim Albin was kind of like the rejuvenation the fan base needed, because they had hired a younger CEO type in Will Healy, and then that older CEO type in a Biff Poggi, and then so now you finally have someone that's just X's and O's, loves the game of football.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, and a guy who took over a program that, when Albin took over, they were in good shape at Ohio, and he kept it going. There's 3-4 programs in that conference. And in fact, last week, one of my MAC guys is an Ohio graduate. So, they were obviously very sad to see him go, which tells you something about, and we'll get to that, in a bit, talking about more coaches, but we also saw the same with Temple. You hire a successful head coach from another G5 team, and hopefully it'll work out for them. I think for Charlotte, it definitely will. I see them as, out of all the G5 teams, they're one who I think there's a lot of potential there. You're in a major city, a good market, even though you have bigger schools in your area, power conference teams, you should be able to carve out a recruiting niche. The campus facilities are nice relative to, other schools of that level. You seem to have, how are they doing NIL wise? Are they competitive for the American Conference?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so tomorrow at the presser, I'm going to ask like a final NIL evaluation of this roster. I was told in the off season that they had about $1.25 million to put towards last year's team, 2024 Biff Poggi.
Yeah.
And it was interesting with Biff being like a multimillionaire hedge fund manager. Like I never got any clarity on if he was helping pay some of this NIL side of things, or maybe one of his businesses or business partners or somebody. But the goal for this year was to get up to 1.5 million. So as far as competitive across the American, I'd say they're probably on the middle to low end of that. But I'll get some clarification on that.
Good. I would be curious. That and assistant coach wise, Todd Fitch comes in as offensive coordinator, very experienced. Was at LSU last year, but has been an SEC O coordinator at Vanderbilt, was at Boston College, very familiar in your conference, was at South Florida and ECU. The guy's had a lot of experience through spring ball and then now fall camp. What offensive wise, are we going to see a different offense? What should we expect them to run?
Yeah, I think so. Todd, the way I see his game, like he's more of the hard-nosed kind of older OC that has, he's going to tell you exactly what he wants from you, and that's what I've heard from the players. He holds that type of standard, and he's just kind of level all the time. He was, his numbers at Vanderbilt, you don't really see a lot of super successful offenses, I guess, maybe at Vanderbilt, obviously, in a tough conference. So when you look at those numbers, they're not great, but when you go back to his time with Louisiana Tech, you mentioned ECU, South Florida. Louisiana Tech specific, they're scoring 30 points a game almost every season he's there. They had a lot of success in Conference USA. And then with this team, I expect them to run the ball a lot. Like I looked at some of the run pass splits from Albin's time at Ohio. And last season, granted, they had a running quarterback.
They did.
But they ran the ball on 61% of their plays. So they want to end up in these third and short situations. They're trying to stay ahead of the chains the biggest like principle type of statement that Fitch has made is they want to end every possession with a kick. So they're going to try and limit all the turnovers, limit penalties. Just as far as the scheme and things like that. So media hasn't been able to watch any of their practices. So seeing what they're going to do.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Under center or in shotgun or whatever, like Albin operated in the pistol a ton last year. I think we could see some of that with this team. And they're still trying to figure out who their quarterback's going to be with the season opener 4 days away. So I think the offense is a lot of question marks, but at least kind of philosophy-wise what Tim Albin's liked, what Todd Fitch has liked. And my understanding is it's kind of a marriage of both. So I think it's going to be a run-heavy offense, get the play-action game going, and then try and open up the passing attack from there.
And I think whether you have Grayson Loftus or Connor Harrell at QB, both of those guys are going to run around a decent amount. They're pretty dual threat guys who have, come from bigger schools. It makes sense that you talked about the media not being at practices. You're not seeing a lot about, across all medias of who has won that job, who's going to be the guy. That makes sense because that's why nobody knows probably.
Yeah. So those two would say are definitely be the finalists. There's one other guy, Zach Wilkie, started at Southern Miss and went JUCO. He's seemed to have a solid shot in the beginning. I think he's kind of fallen to that second tier, and it sounds like Loftus is more of he can get out and run, but he's more of the traditional pocket passer. Yeah. He can kind of stand in, and then Harrell is going to pull the ball down and run with it.
Exactly.
And I've seen Harrell play in person a couple times. Duke's Mayo Bowl a couple years ago. North Carolina played West Virginia, and then actually last season, Harrell was the starter when Charlotte went to Chapel Hill, and
I forgot that was early. Yeah, that time of year that makes sense.
He didn't particularly impress me, but I also think that he's got another year of growth, and we can kind of see how he fits in with Todd.
Yeah,
I fits that offense.
Yeah, and defensively, you have the co-DCs, but Kurt Maddox, long time, has been a guy I've written about him before. He's massively respected around the country as a D coordinator. Was at San Diego State and did a very good job there. Was with Albin at Ohio last year. Comes over with him, so he should be a good guy to have in charge there. His teams have typically been very good at defending the run, so that'll be.
I talked with him for quite a while at Media Day, and you could tell immediately he loves football and he knows his stuff. Him and then Nate Fanez. So Fanez is, I guess, the DC, and the co-DC title is mildly odd, I guess, but Kurt is going to be coaching the edges, working with those guys, and then Nate Fanez. They brought over, I think it's 3 linebackers, maybe 4 from Ohio, with the 2 biggest names being Shea Taylor. He was like the 3rd leading tackler. He had some big-time offers, places like Penn State, West Virginia, in the portal, and then ultimately came to Charlotte. So him and Caden Schmitz are going to be the linebacker duo. I'm looking forward to watching those guys play ball.
Will Schmitz be that edge-type guy who will drop and then play on the edge sometimes? Because that's kind of what he did.
So he transitioned fully, so he's just been a stand-up backer. So there's 6 periods of practice.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's not on the edge anymore.
Okay. And then I know D-back wise, did they get a corner from Harvard? Is that right? I thought it will.
There's they've added a ton. So
I knew they got quite a few.
So there's actually not a returning corner that really played a lot, especially from last season. So they had Donnie Balfour, who's probably their best defensive player last year. He transferred to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Corners up in the air. So Ty Baldwin coming in from Ball State has played well. Caleb Curtin coming from Elon. Heard good things about these guys. And like I say, when I say played well, it's just players or coaches telling me that, because I can't get out and watch anymore.
Yeah. Gavin Shipman was the guy that I was thinking of.
Oh, Shipman. Yeah. No, I've heard a little bit about him, but not a ton.
Yeah. but and that even on the defensive front, it seems like all that D-line are new guys in the program too. So I know
Yeah.
Solomon coming from FIU should be a pretty good player. He'll be in the middle there, and then Cobb up from Troy also, is a guy we've seen play a decent amount of football. Beyond those two, I can't say I knew a ton about the others, but those two were promising to have there.
Yeah,
Anyway.
so Braden Mullen and DJ Burgess are the two guys I think will be on the edge. So Braden Mullen played at Dartmouth. I believe it's 20 and a half tackles for loss over the past 3 seasons there.
Good.
And then DJ Burgess, another guy that came from the JUCO route. He was at Northwest Mississippi Community College. Played really well there. He's a power guy. Talked with him, and these guys are just hungry, man. I think the new opportunity and playing, as you mentioned, for Kurt Maddox, I think those be the guys on the edge. And then Jalar Holly returns at defensive tackle. He started his career at Miami and actually transferred to Charlotte in 2021, and he got an NCAA waiver, so he'll be back this year.
Okay.
Other ACC transfer, Ayo Tafasi, coming in from Florida State. So he got here last year, was hurt, made a lot of plays at practice. I could still watch practice then under Poggi, but it didn't quite translate to the game, and he dealt with some injuries. So we'll see kind of how he bounces back this year, gets used to playing under the staff. But I think those would be some of the guys that show up for sure.
Good to hear. Yeah, but I think overall, very exciting times for them, bringing in a proven winner and a staff that knows how to get it done and, can develop consistency in a place where I think there's a lot of promise to be, one of the year after year contenders in the American. So
yeah, it's the most qualified coach they've ever had. So, I mean, when you look at Will Healy coming from the FCS ranks, he did well there. Then you look at Biff Poggi, who was kind of like that phenom high school coach, but had never coached a college game. But now you have someone that's won some bowl games, won Coach of the Year awards, won 10 wins, 10 games multiple times. So I think the operation is running smooth there. I just want to see it on the field. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and Healy's back at the FCS now at East Tennessee State. So
yeah, he's rolling out 2 quarterbacks again for the opener. He did the same exact thing in his Charlotte debut.
Okay, I can't say I paid attention to how the ETSU fall camp is going, so I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully he can make it there though. One of the kind of staples of the show that we always do is talk about the other coaches in the conference. So, it's kind of one of my primary writing things. And for the P4 conferences, it's easy to find lists. A lot of people do rankings, On3, 247, ESPN. Whereas for the G5 ones, not many people do that. So I did a writing series for Mike Farrell Sports, who I write for, where I rank the conference coaches. So that this ranking will be mine. So basically, if you have problems with it, feel free to cast stones at me and tell me what you like, what you don't like. So I honestly, and across the board in the G5, I don't think there's a better top to bottom conference coaching wise. I mean, you have a lot of guys here. I mean, guys who like Alex Golish, Newberry, and Morris, all in the middle there, who Morris has taken over a terrible situation and he's gotten them respectable. Golish had the really good first year after, taking over just a terrible situation from Scott at South Florida. And then Navy has a fantastic season last year. But starting at the top, I mean, for me, it's tough not to have Summerall at number 1. He's 32-9 in 3 years as a head coach. That's really impressive and tough to beat. He's made a conference title all 3 of it, 2 years at Troy and then Tulane last year. And Keeler, obviously new to the conference, but not new to winning. The only guy to win an FCS title at 2 different schools. And in the move up, with Sam Houston, got them to 10 wins in year 2. Pretty impressive. So top of the list wise, Would you agree with the top 3, 4, or would you have some movement there? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely like Summerall. I just met Keeler at Media Day, and
Oh, very cool.
yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah.
His kind of opening speech at Media Day was great.
Where does the American do? Where was Media Days at?
It was actually in Charlotte this year, which is
Oh,
really
that's
cool. I didn't have to go anywhere. Yeah.
that's very convenient. Yeah.
The only thing I'd say about the list, I really like Ryan Silverfield at
Yeah.
Memphis. And it's funny, man. Like these Charlotte Memphis games, both of them the last 2 years have been nail biters that have crushed Charlotte's season. And
Okay. Yeah.
it's like you're watching a team and a head coach in Silverfield who their defense looked terrible in both of those games, but when it came down to winning time, they found a way to win. And Charlotte hasn't had maybe a coach or a regime that could do that yet. And I think so I've got some respect for him. But yeah, definitely Jeff Traylor.
I get that. It's tough with his record. He's won twice as many as he's lost.
Yeah.
You could definitely say it's tough to have Silverfield as low as I did.
But no, I think it's a good list, man. Jeff Traylor's he's the man. He's another one that definitely has a ton to say.
Yeah,
but some of them like Charlotte hasn't played just yet, so I haven't gotten to dive into. But like Jeff Monken, for example, at Army, like Charlotte plays there this year. It's a noon game on CBS Sports, so I'll definitely deep dive. But
wasn't that Memphis game on the road last year?
Yeah,
I remember it was a tight game. Yeah,
Charlotte was, I think, 3-4 at the time, and they're up most of the second half and just crumble at the end of the game. And yeah, there was so much back and forth at quarterback, and they could not figure it out, and it was glaringly obvious who the best quarterback was, and they didn't know it, but it came to fruition. But
yeah. Looking at I looked at the Charlotte schedule, today, and saw they didn't play Memphis this year, but that last month of the season is no slouch. You go to ECU, UTSA at home, at Georgia, at Tulane, so that's not going to be easy.
They're winning before that. they
fared
fared well against ECU last year, being probably the best game the program's ever had. I mean, they put 55 on the board. They handled business for an ECU team that went on to win 8 games. But yeah, we'll see how it goes this year. I definitely think UTSA is going to be in the top players in the conference.
I think so.
As well.
Yeah, really for Charlotte, if you want to, hopefully, I think the goal has to be get to a bowl game this year. That first conference game against Rice could be massive. Really got to get that. 2 teams with a new head coach, and a game that, you probably should win at home, but one that you really want to make sure you get.
Yeah, and it's funny. So Scott Abel coming from Davidson, so that's a massive game from him coming back to North Carolina, and that's gone back and forth over the past few years. I remember when Charlotte fired Will Healy, the very next game with Pete Rosamondo as head coach, they go to Rice and score 55 or 57 or something crazy and look like a real competent football team. And then the next year, Rice comes to Charlotte, absolutely smashes Charlotte. And this past year, the game came down to a missed field goal. So it's I feel like that series is always insane. So I'm looking forward to that one. That's Charlotte's only ESPN game this year. So.
Oh, nice. That'll be fun. Yeah. And then even, getting lower on this list, I feel like we have, some guys with a lot of potential. You just mentioned Abel at Rice, was very good at Davidson. Along with Albin, the other one in this conference, I was a big fan of the Zach Kitley hire. A lot of promise coming over from Texas Tech. I think FAU did a very good job, in identifying. And it seemed like that one moved quick. I think they identified him pretty early on that he's the guy we want, a younger, dynamic, X's and O's driven offensive guy. So,
yeah, it was funny. They were on pretty much the same exact timeline as Charlotte. So when Charlotte fired Biff, FAU fired Tom Herman like
Yeah.
either the same day or the day before. And then you've always heard the saying, like, you get the interim head coach boost. It was like both
Yep.
teams had it playing each other that Saturday. So I got to see Kitley at media days very tall. That was the first thought.
Oh, yeah.
And there's one other name on this list that I like, and it's Trey Lamb. So
Yeah.
he was actually in the mix to be Charlotte's head coach. He was at Gardner Webb for a while. ETSU has got
He was
that
at
there,
ETSU
but
for a year. Yeah.
yeah, did well there. Kind of
He
turned them
did.
around. And I thought he'd have a chance, but it's good to see him in the Americas or in the Americans. So
Yeah.
it'll be fun to
Yeah.
watch them this year.
And I think why I put him the last out of the three new guys right there was I just have the question surrounding Tulsa. I don't
Yeah.
know. And certainly Abel's record is a lot better than his, but both those places are tougher to win. But when Kevin Wilson got hired at Tulsa, I thought it was a good move. And he's one of those guys who in the past he had gotten his guys in the system, and it took him a while to get good. And I don't know if I don't want to say they didn't give him time, because he, even in his years there, they just never seemed to turn that corner and get better. So that might have been one where I whiffed on in liking that Wilson hire when it happened. The one along with Silverfield, the one some people took exception with on this list was Blake Harrell at 13. He was 5-1 last year at ECU, and you had mentioned the thing with Biff before, how he would have liked to coach those last two games to get that record up to 5-7. Well, Harrell was the inverse of that. When Houston went through the gauntlet of the schedule, the tough part, then he gets fired, and that schedule got a lot easier when Harrell was in charge. So I think even had Houston been there, they still were going to win a lot of those games. So I'm not dogging Harrell. I'm just saying I need to see him do it over the course of a full season and against good teams.
Yeah, I need to see more. I agree.
And with Dilfer, I just don't know if he's the guy there. I mean, he was at a high school, very limited coaching experience before being the head coach of an FBS team. That's tough for anybody to do. I mean, I don't know if it's going to work out there. I mean, and that's a school where you should be. Bill Clark was fantastic. I mean, he's one of the better coaches we've seen in that conference in the G5 level in recent years. Took them from, not having a program to perennial, contenders, at least at that level, in the conference, and they've fallen off a lot.
Yep.
So there's two questions I always ask about the coaches with my viewers. The first one, what coach in the conference do you think is on the hottest seat going into this year?
I would have said Dilfer, and I'll stick with that.
Yep.
It's just a tough situation. I agree though. And last year I would have told you Poggi at the beginning of the year, just because so many, like I mentioned earlier, like the messaging was just poor, talking about competing for national championships.
And was he overselling? Yeah.
Okay. And he came on our podcast and he actually talked about why he did it, which helped kind of bring clarity to it, basically saying you're at a school that's never really won anything and you need guys to come that are winners. And I guess that's why he made some of those claims, but obviously didn't play that way. So
yeah, that's a tough one. Far be it for me to criticize someone who's been a head coach at that level, but it seems like maybe not because then you come off as being unrealistic when you're trying to sell it that way.
And that's the thing too. So Albin came in and his first thing he said at the presser was, "Wow, we're gonna win," and you could tell how excited he was. And it was so much different than Biff. Like I say, like Biff is like this mob boss that is coming in to take the place over, and he has this certain, I guess, aura could be a word with him, where he comes in the room. And Tim is just different. He's knows everybody's name, super nice dude, and like I say, loves ball. But he's been very serious about he said multiple times that we're going to be a good football team. I just don't know when, which is, I think, kind of tapering expectations for year one. And as you mentioned, he won 3 games in year one with Ohio, and then obviously turned it up and won.
You also appreciate the realistic nature of that, the way that's worded too, though. Like, don't expect a lot year one. But I definitely agree with you there. With that, Dilfer would be the hottest one for me. We don't see a ton of guys get fired after year 2 now. Obviously, with Biff, it did it. It used to be you always got 3 years. We're seeing it more with like Tim Herman, another guy. But the next question I ask, so I think sometimes makes people think a little more. So, out of the coaches in the conference, who do you think is the best candidate to get poached by a bigger school for a job? And for this one, I'm not going to let you say John Summerall because he's the easy one. You got to say somebody else.
He definitely is the easy one.
He is. Yeah.
I'd probably say Silverfield then, just because, like I say, he's been doing it there for a while. And like I say, he's just got a way about him. And I've never met him in person, but just reading up on them, following their media. Jonah Dillon is one of the reporters there for Commercial Appeal. He's a good dude. So I read a lot of his work, and just kind of hearing how Silverfield is with the media.
That's good to know. I'll have to give him a follow. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say probably him.
Okay. I'm going to go Eric Morris for that one. I think you have a guy, dynamic offense, has elevated their team, in 5 wins his first year, 6, and then when he was at Incarnate Word, Coach Cam Ward did a good job. Ward followed him to Wazoo, that Texas Tech background. So Morris would be the guy that I would say, though I think another good, especially if this guy can revert back to 2 years ago, Alex Golish is another guy that it probably happens for too.
Yeah, he's cutthroat, man. I asked him at media day, I was like, if there's a rule you could change, like an on-field football rule, and he said, I want my wideouts to be able to cut block. I was like, okay.
Good question. I mean, it's a good question. Yeah. And I guess I understand from someone like me who played receiver in college back when you could do that. That's about all you were taught to do, because just you're so much smaller than a lot of the other guys, and you're not going to sustain a stock block forever. So that it's an interesting answer. But I think you're Silverfield and then Morris, Golish, all very good answers. So nextly, we'll talk about the QBs of the conference. So this projected starters, and this projected starter list is a lot different than it was when we had our last American episode a while ago, because at that time, DeVillier was projected at Rice. He obviously has been beaten up by Jenkins. And then Poffenbarger was the projected at North Texas, and Mestmaker has taken that job. So we talked a bit about the Charlotte job before. If you would have to guess now, do you think it will be Harrell, Loftus? Who would you guess would be the guy?
Yeah, so they kind of doxed themselves in a way the other day. They posted their team captains, and Harrell is as a captain.
I didn't see that. Okay, that's good to know.
Albin didn't name him as the starter, and he might tomorrow. But I mean, if you're gonna name a quarterback as a captain, you'd think they're gonna play. So I think
you would assume so. Yes,
I think. Yeah, and Harrell fits. He's kind of like Parker Navarro, Ohio's quarterback from last year, a dual threat. And Navarro, I mean, he ran 18 touchdowns, had over 1,000 yards on the ground. So I definitely think we're going to see a lot of QB run, and there's a chance that we see both him and Loftus. I don't think
certainly, yeah.
I don't think that's the route that Tim wants to go, Tim Albin, but I do think it's possible. So I think Connor Harrell will probably take the opening snaps if the captain thing is any sort of indication.
Okay. No, I think that's a good way to look at it. And you don't necessarily want to play multiple in the first game, but if it happens, then it happens. No.
Yep. And that's been the story of Charlotte football since Chris Reynolds graduated in 22. They haven't had
they
haven't had a quarterback. Yeah.
No, you're right about that. Yeah. But, looking at some other, go through the schools on this list. We have Dwayne Coleman at Army, obviously a team that's going to use their QB as almost a quasi other running back. Simply Daly was unbelievable last year. A lot of people don't realize he had the same number of rushing touchdowns as Ashton Jeanty did last year.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody expects that same production from Coleman. But even if it's half to 60% of that, you're still looking at very good numbers out of your QB. And Monken does a good job coaching him up there. Byron Brown at South Florida, I think to me is an interesting one who, similar to their team, 2 years ago, he was awesome. They came out of nowhere, made it to a bowl game. Then last year, they regressed a little bit. We didn't see the growth out of South Florida that we thought we would in 2024. And I don't want to say a lot of it had to do with Brown, but he certainly didn't. He played in 5 games. He only threw 2 touchdowns. And
I know he dealt with an injury, but I remember watching him. So he's a Raleigh kid, and
I didn't know
the previous
that.
Dream was kind of frustrated that he wasn't a 49er, but obviously got down there to South Florida. And the first time they played, I think he was a true freshman. He just lit Charlotte up. I think he scored 5 touchdowns, 3 for 4, ran for 1, maybe something like that. And then, so he was kind of on my radar after that as an up-and-comer in the conference. But I know he dealt with some sort of injury last season. But, the numbers, it wasn't the same for sure.
No.
I think he'll bounce back, though. He's a good player.
Yeah, and certainly was electric, when he was healthy and playing a full season. Then we got Caden Veldkamp, with Kitley at FAU, was the starter at Western Kentucky, where all their QBs put up a lot of numbers. He threw for over 3,000 last year, 25 touchdowns, and then ran for another 7. Him, combined with Easton Messer coming in as, the number 1 receiver that was with him at WKU, they should have a good passing attack at Florida Atlantic this year. Yep, I'll be curious to watch them. They're a team who we'll see if they can keep it up, both what Kitley wants to do did at Texas Tech, I should say, and the WKU offense that Veldkamp did. But they should be fun. And then Horvath at Navy, one of the prime returners in the conference, saw a lot of good things out of him last year. What have you heard a lot about Navy, in fall camp, off season? This summer, they're a team I haven't heard as much about as I feel like I usually do.
I have not. So Charlotte actually ducked them this year, which is good for Charlotte because they went to Annapolis last year and got smashed. But no, I haven't been keeping up too much just because, like I say, they're not on the schedule.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. But we know Horvath will be back, and he'll run for a lot of touchdowns is one thing.
Yeah, and Alex Teska, their fullback, he's going to do it too.
Yeah, and Heidenreich, they got all kinds of – everybody on their team's going to run for between 8 and 10 touchdowns, but nobody will get a ton of yards. It's kind of one of those, Brendan Lewis will have at Memphis. He transferred from Nevada, where we had seen him be pretty solid. And then another guy who kind of faded off, his last little bit there. And they struggled at Nevada last year. They had a new head coach. But obviously, you were high on Silverfield, and they've won a lot of games there. Has Lewis been named the starter at Memphis? I know he was battling the true freshman, Hill, I believe was the guy's name.
Not 100% sure on that. I have seen Brendan Lewis play, but just not 100% sure on that.
Okay. Yeah. Where'd you see him play at?
Nevada. Yeah.
Okay. Did you? Okay.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
watching games on TV and
Oh,
stuff.
I thought you meant you saw him in
nah,
person. I was like, really? That's an odd one. Okay.
nah, familiar name. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying I don't hear a lot of people that go to Reno, Nevada to watch a college football game. So
Yeah,
that would
no.
have been sweet if you had, though. Yeah. And then we have Katenhauser next at ECU. He's a guy who, another one like Horvath, we have seen him play a decent amount of football. He's been around for a while. Started his career at Michigan State, was there for a couple years, and was at Charlotte, or sorry, was at ECU last year.
Yeah, he's so in Charlotte and ECU played last year. I can't remember their starter in that game's name, but they pulled that guy pretty much like the second or third series of the game and put Hauser in. But at that point, the game was getting kind of out of hand. So,
Was it Jake Garcia who's now at Michigan?
Yeah,
Yep,
that's what it was.
That transfer surprised everybody.
Yeah, I remember looking up the stats for that game, and I think he had thrown 11 picks on the season. This is just off the top of my head at that point, and like 8 of them were in a clean pocket according to PFF. And I was like, well, whether you get to him or not, he's going to throw it to the other team. And surely enough, he did. And then they pulled him right after that. So
that is a wild stat. Wow. Yeah, you don't hear that discrepancy too often. ECU will be an interesting team, though. Not just with Hauser, but I was actually talking about them with someone on Twitter today, and their receiving room will be very good. So, they'll have Petway is one of them, Anthony Smith, and then Yannick Smith. Both Smiths will be good. So I think that ECU now, they lost a lot at a lot of other positions. They're going to be almost totally new, but could be good receiver there. And then one of the ones that changed, Drew Mestemaker at North Texas, I think he battled obviously and beat Reese Poffenberger, who most people had figured Poffenberger would win the job. Poffenberger had been at FCS Albany and done well, was at Miami last year and backed up Cam Ward. And then it kind of was the appearance that he was picked by Morris to transfer there and have the job. But Mestemaker beat him out. And fun fact, I don't know if you saw this one, but fun fact with Mestemaker, he started the bowl game last year and did well for them. That was his first start at quarterback since he was a freshman in high school.
Oh my gosh.
Because he played safety. I forget who the quarterback on his high school team was, but it's a guy that is at a backup at an FBS school now. So it's another D1 guy. And but wild stat. And Owen McCown at UTSA, obviously a good program there, a team who they're going to have both good receivers and run the ball a lot. We've talked about Traylor a little bit earlier, and they're a team who will put it on the ground, be pretty good mixed run, probably a little more run heavy. But McCown, a lefty, another one of the guys on this list we've seen play a lot of football. So that and they're a team that'll win games. But, I think that Evan Simon with Temple, he's battling Giovanni McCoy, who started at Oregon State last year, spent the spring at Texas State, didn't win the job, and is now at Temple. Have you heard any clarity on the Temple job of who's going to be that guy there?
Nah, nothing for them.
I haven't.
Nothing for these last 5 either.
Okay. And with Samanzo was the one who I don't think he ends up getting that job. Obviously, we had the late transfer of Jake Retzlaff at BYU, going to Tulane. So I think Retzlaff will be the guy, but Samanzo's in that. And then another guy in that battle is Brendan Sullivan, who was at Iowa last year, Northwestern before that. And then Donovan Leary, a former Illinois QB. So there's 4 guys, up for it at Tulane, but I think Retzlaff will get the job. Jalen Kitna, obviously at UAB, son of John Kitna, former NFL player.
Yep.
And he actually, we've seen him play a little bit, and like most of their team, he's been remarkably average at best. Chase Jenkins was named the starter at Rice a few days ago. He's a guy who's going to.
Is
What's
Warner
that?
still there? Is Warner still there? Did he?
No, he is at Fresno State. So he started against Kansas this past weekend. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, Warner's at Fresno. But Jenkins is a guy, in that the Able offense, it's a lot of option concepts. So they're going to run around a lot. And I don't want to say he'll be running as much as the Service Academy QBs, but it won't be far off. Another absolutely wild stat, Rice related, in Scott Abel's last 7 years as a head coach, he's also the play caller on offense. They have, in the passing game, they have targeted the running backs 0 times. I don't even know how that happens.
Yeah,
that's never. They've 0 targets to a running back. Like at that point, you're overtly trying not to, because at some point a dump off would happen.
Yeah,
like to me, that's I had to like double, triple check it. Like, there's no way this can be right. No, it was.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, and then Kurt Francis at Tulsa. You talked about Lamb before. They're a team who we expect to probably be the inverse of Rice, where they will throw it quite a bit more.
I think Francis played in the game against Charlotte 2 years ago. That was a game Tulsa played 3 quarterbacks due to injury. So that name is familiar.
Oh, okay. I do remember in 23 they did have a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. So they had Braylon Braxton, who started at Marshall last year and was, led him to the conference title, and is at Southern Miss now. He was on that Tulsa team. And then Cardell Williams, who was now at Sacramento State with Brennan Marion, was also on that team. So that jives, because they were playing all kinds of QBs that year because they kept getting hurt, all of them. Yeah. Another one of the things we didn't always do this on the show. It's something I added a few weeks ago. If you would have to pick now, who would be conference player of the year, preseason wise? Who would you pick if you had to? I think for me, if I would have to lean, I would probably go Horvath.
That's what I was going to say. It's hard not to pick him. Yeah, he's proven it. He's still there. Newberry's still there. He's not a lot of new, and their scheme, no one can stop it.
Exactly.
So
no, you're 100% right there.
Yeah.
I think the other guys I thought could make a case for, certainly if Brendan Lewis does well at Memphis, they're going to win games. And if USF would be in the conference title hunt, Brown could have a shot too. And you'd said he's a guy who could bounce back. To me, I feel like the only non-QB with a shot probably would be Maurice Turner, if Tulane goes undefeated and he's the last 2 years, their lead running back has had over 230 carries. That's a ton of volume. And if Turner gets that and they go to the conference title game, he's a guy with a shot.
Yeah. What was their running back last year? Mario something?
No, Mekhi Hughes. Yeah.
Mekhi Hughes.
Who's at Oregon this year.
Yeah.
Well, and then the year before that, it was Ty-J Spears, who had like 265 carries in 1 year.
Yeah.
So
he'll definitely have the workload.
He will. Yeah. Now, in looking at the conference on the whole, where all of we used to do college fantasy stuff. Those drafts are in the rearview mirror now, so kind of behind us. If you want to have a college fantasy take, by all means, tell the audience, but I won't force you to have one. In the American, so we talked a bit about coaches, teams, and whatnot. Who's a team that you expect to be better than they were last year?
Yeah, I think North Texas is the fun one this year. I think they're the wild card in the conference. The offense, I think, is going to be good. They got to get the defense figured out. I'd say they're probably the fun team, and I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to watching them.
I love watching. They're a lot of fun to watch. I think the one team I'm going to pick who I expect to be better. UTSA was 7-6 last year and 4-4 in the conference. I think their record is better this year. Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
they'll be good. Anytime I see them, I just think of Frank Harris, and I feel like he was in college football for so long. He's like Perry Ellis from Kansas, but.
I was reading an article today. Former Georgia quarterback Dwan Mathis is at a D2 school in his 7th year of college football.
Yeah, man.
So, yeah. What about, is there a team you expect to be worse this year than they were last year? I think for me, the obvious one is Army. So I'm going to say somebody different because they're not going to be as good as they were last year. I mean, we talked about it some earlier with ECU. Like, I still can't believe they won 8 games. I know.
So I could see them taking a step back. I don't necessarily think they'll be bad, or have a rough year, but their schedule is pretty interesting.
It is.
And Charlotte's win total has been the same like every season the past 3 years. I think it's at 3.5. So I think they'll have a chance to get over that. But I wouldn't put them kind of in the good or bad. I just think this is kind of like trial run year for the 49ers.
That's fair. The one who I was waffling on was, do we expect Navy to win 10 games again?
Yeah.
Their schedule's not too bad, though. Like, that schedule's not bad. I mean, you start off FCS, VMI, UAB, Tulsa, Rice. Those are 4 winnable games.
4-0. Yeah.
Yep. Air Force is at home, and I think Air Force is going to be better this year. But still at home, you like your odds. At Temple.
Pretty sure Rice beat Navy last year. And that's when I was like, what is college football?
Really?
Like, if I remember correctly.
They did. They beat them 24-10. Yes.
And I was just like, I'm pretty sure it's like right after Navy smashed Charlotte, or right before, at some point.
Navy smashed Charlotte. Then they lost to Notre Dame. Then they lost to Rice.
Yeah.
It almost makes me wonder for how physical Navy plays, where they really beat up after Notre Dame, and did that affect the Rice game? Yeah.
Gotta be. Yeah. It's like when you play the Detroit Lions in the NFL, they're just so physical. It's like teams have a hangover that following week. It's a real thing.
Yeah. It is. Oh, yeah, the body blow theory. Yep, it certainly is. But I think I'd lean ECU with you on that one for a team I expect to regress. Yeah, it's tough not to, just because, like I said, I thought about Navy, but that schedule's not too bad.
Yeah, they could do that again. I think get 10.
Yeah. Now, we always conference-wise, we always end with what 2 teams do you pick to be in the American Conference title?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about them a lot, and it might be kind of a easy pick, but probably Tulane and Navy.
Okay.
It's just like we talked some about the Navy schedule. I think they're going to be good again. They just wear you down, man. So they came to Charlotte 2 seasons ago, 2023, and Charlotte's defense was pretty good that season. They had a lot of talent on it. Their offense was terrible, though. And Charlotte threw 4 picks. The game was 14-0. It was tied at 0 at halftime. There were more punts than points in the game total, but they just wear you down. And you can play great defense for 60 of the 62 defensive snaps or whatever, but those 2 that you don't, gash you for a touchdown. And that's Navy. Like I said, they're just hard to stop. And then we talked a lot about Summerall earlier. Like, I mean, he made national championship claims when he got there. So expectations are high for them, and I think they'll deliver.
So I'm certainly on Tulane. I made a bold pick in one of these other ones that I think Tulane has a good shot to be the G5 team in the playoffs this year. Yeah. And for the other conference title team, for me, it's between Navy and Memphis are the 2 I've kind of waffled on. For the sake of disagreeing. I'll go Memphis for the other one, and I'll say why, because it, and this could be a fun one. Navy Memphis play the last game of the regular season,
Yeah.
and that game could be for the conference. But Memphis has a bye the week before that.
Yeah, and you need a bye if you're going to play them, the Service Academies.
Yeah, I forget if it's a bye or a Thursday game, but they have like an 11 or 12 day break in between. So for the sake of being different, I'll go Tulane Memphis.
It's so funny, man, because Charlotte has had the bye, like an open week both times before playing Navy the last 2 years, and it's like still the first snap of the game, you can't simulate how well they run the option. You just can't. It's not as good. It's not as crisp. So when they hit you for that first time, it's just like you have to adjust immediately.
Yeah, they just read it so much faster. And I think part of that is a lot of teams, when you're prepping for the option, none of your QBs are serviceable running wise. So a lot of teams will have a receiver play quarterback, but that decision making is not going to be there when you're doing it. I'm in practice. So, so like I said, my kind of bold take is Tulane gets the G5 spot in the playoffs. If you would have to put G5, Boise's certainly going to have a shot to be back there. Who do you think will be, that G5 team that cracks the playoff?
Yeah, I would say probably Tulane. I agree with you. I got to do all my homework on all this here pretty soon.
It'll be tough. Yeah, if Liberty goes undefeated, which they could, they might have a shot too. But I think Autacusa, because your strength of schedule is going to be so weak, you'd have to go 13-0.
Yeah, there's no chance. Yeah, or if they have any kind of, if they falter at all, it won't happen. I agree with you.
One thing we always, end the show on is going into the year, a hot take, a bold take that you might have, something unfamiliar, unpopular, whatever you want. What would it can be Charlotte or it can be anybody else related. What would your take be going into the season?
Like for making a bowl or just to take in
it can be making a so I'll tell you my G5 one that I've used several times is that I think Louisiana Tech is a 7, maybe an 8-win team. I think they're much improved this year. So that was mine. La Tech being way better.
Yeah. I'll stick on Charlotte just because I know them the best. I think year one is going to be tough. When I look at talent wise on the team, I don't think it's as good as last year's. And last year, obviously, they won 5 games. You fire a coach at 3-7. And this schedule is way harder. So they open with Appalachian State, Bank of America Stadium. So they're 0-3 against App. Past 2 games have been closer than the scoreboard says. So I think they're getting there competition wise. But then you host North Carolina in week 2. That's Bill Belichick's first road game. We talked about the gauntlet at the end of the season going, ECU, UTSA, at Georgia, and at Tulane. It's like,
and that game before ECU was North Texas.
Yeah, who I think is a wild card in the conference. So they're gonna have to do some winning early. They're gonna have to beat someone that you're not expected to beat. I think if they're gonna find a way to get to 4, 5, 6 wins. So I could see them in that 3 to 4 range. But I think the message I've been, I guess, kind of spilling to the Charlotte media or the Charlotte fans rather is Tim Albin is a proven winner, but he didn't get a chance to recruit a high school class, man. I mean, he got hired pretty late in the process. Charlotte went 21 days without a head coach after firing Biff.
Ooh, I didn't realize it was that long. I suppose it was longer because they played the conference title game.
And so there was a handshake deal done. So they knew, but Charlotte didn't announce it. And
because of that, he can't start working then either.
Right. And he wanted to handle business the right way at Ohio. Tim Albin did. So you can look at his 2026 recruiting class. They're putting that together. I think we'll get an idea year one of what it's going to be, but I think year 2 is when that jump's going to happen. So I'd say that's my take for now. Their schedule is brutal, and
Okay.
it's it'll be interesting season.
Yeah, that week one will be, App State's another team with just about as many changes. So Dowell Logains is their new head coach. He was coordinator at my alma mater, the Gamecocks, the last 2 years, and then they got another transfer QB, AJ Swan, who was at Vandy and at LSU last year. I'm battling JJ Cole, an Iowa State transfer.
Yeah,
So
Cole is 6'7", dude. That's
yeah,
a power forward playing quarterback. I know, like some
and
of the
yeah,
prototypical QBs are 6'5" and up, but that's a big dude.
and he's really heavy. He's probably 250 as well. He's very thick.
Yeah,
So
they haven't named a starter either. Ace
okay,
Loggins said today they have 2.5 to 3 guys still
yeah,
repping.
okay.
So
And
we'll see.
Dubinian, their running back will probably be Rashad Dubinian, who was at Arkansas last year. So I think they're a team that, like you guys, pretty portal heavy this year.
Yeah, Charlotte's got 56 new faces. I think they have 57, so it's pretty
Wow.
close.
Okay,
A
that's
lot of
no.
smorgasbord of new and old, trying to get everyone on the same page. So I think that game could be really fun, but Charlotte hasn't necessarily fared well in these moments. So I looked it up. So Tim Albin is 1-3 in season openers. 2 of those losses are to Syracuse, one's to San Diego State. So a couple of them against tough
Yeah,
ACC, and then App is 4-1 in their last 5 season openers. Obviously, Loggins coming in, whole different deal. But I heard in their presser today that the Appalachian State football coaching staff has 93 years of combined NFL experience. So that's a wild stat.
yeah, because I suppose their D coordinator was DJ Smith, who played and coached for a while. So that makes sense. I wouldn't have thought of that. And then I know one of their offensive assistants. I don't know if he's analyst or whatever his official title is, but Clyde Christensen, who was with the Colts forever, in their Peyton Manning years with Tony Dungy. Christensen's with App State as well. So yeah, a lot of big names there and guys that have been around. So it's fun. But Hunter, is awesome to have you here. Great show. I was glad we could talk about Charlotte 49er football and, the big offseason they've had and, all those changes. Listeners out there, I'll tag all of his and his podcast stuff so you'll be able to easily see his work and follow them. But again, Hunter, thank you for being here. It was an awesome show.
Definitely appreciate you guys having me.